Da 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 da. What's my good chair? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes. Get those notifications out. Let people know I've gone live. I haven't been live now for 2 weeks, I think, almost 2 weeks. And it has been an amazing 2 weeks. It has been full of challenges, it's been full of beautiful landscapes, lots of time with myself. Oh my goodness, the Mother Nature, the lakes, the drive. It was just what I needed. I had the opportunity to disappear for a week and 8 days to be exact. I'm just going to take this notification off. 8 days, uh, in fact, but it was just what I needed, right? I have to say it was just what the doctor ordered. I think in that time that I was leaving, that things were starting to stir up, and I felt that I was being pulled out of the picture, like literally pulled out of the picture. I could barely get out of my camp chair, and it was a comfy camp chair, but it was in that soaking in that absorbing my environment. And it really did feel like it was my environment. My brain has been going 100 miles an hour. How to bring more of that into my life, right? And at the same time, getting home, getting back into the grind of things. And I tell you, up until today, I've been going 100 miles an hour, right? Cleaning all my gear, going through my gear, deciding what I want to keep, what could be right. It was just something that was cool, but nothing I was ever going to use again. And I put it off to the side. Um, 6 loads of laundry. It rained quite a bit while I was away. I was a bit of a wet dog all the way around, but I didn't mind because, like I said, it was that connection to, well, it was to my environment. It was Mother Nature. And when I say my environment, it wasn't just Mother Nature, my environment within myself. I never felt that presence, that company, that partnership like I did when I was away by myself. I had my monopod and my camera, and we filmed it. We did, and like I said, when I came home, I went 100 miles an hour, right? Reorganizing, right? Not just my gear and my laundry, but clearing my mind in a way that, how do I say this, that connection wanted to hold on. Like even now, my sleeping habits, I'm trying to stay up as late as I can because I find that I'm ready for bed at 7 o'clock at night. And I know from my experience of being out in the countryside, out in the wilderness, out in the provincial parks, because that's where I went. I did 4 provincial parks in 8 days. And like I said, it was just what I needed. But it was content for my brand, it was time for myself, it was that sense of accomplishment in setting goals. And even though before I left, I didn't really think it was going to be a possibility this year that I was going to be able to take off on that trip, right? And somehow it happened, and I'm so grateful for, I'd have to say, all the participants that contributed to my excursion, my adventure, my mishaps, because again, it's still an everyday, day to day. And I understand from my past experiences because I've been doing these trips now for for a couple of decades anyway, that I've taken off on my own. It's something I've always done since my divorce, at the very least. I find that spending time with myself is the perfect way for me in vacationing because I'm around people all the time. I'm absorbing my environment, whatever environment I'm in, all the time. And I take that agitation on. Lots of times I delve into it just to help alleviate us. Is that alleviate a situation or balance out chaos? I love the chaos. I work my very, very best when I'm in that do or die, not literally do or die, but that hairy, scary, that crazy time when everything is falling apart, because that's where I shine the best, right? And it's not something I've been able to show myself or others for months now, right? I have been in the lessons, but I know when I go on these trips, there's always this pushback at me, right? And it this year, it just seemed like there was a lot of problem solving going on. And at the same time as this problem solving was going on, there was a call to slow down. Not just slow down, but there was a call for me to stop. It was really hard for me to get off of my out of my camping chair. It was really hard when I was sitting on a rock and staring out at a beautiful landscape or a beautiful sunset, or sunrise. I was up at sun. I was up. I'm not somebody who can stay contained when they're sleeping, for a very, very long time. As you mature, you naturally don't need as much sleep as you used to. I'm good on 5 or 6 hours a night. But I can't get up after 5 hours of sleep when I'm out in a campground or in an RV park or something, because I would be disturbing other people's experiences. And that's not my intent. I want everybody to have that experience of connecting with the outdoors, with connecting with Mother Nature. And even though um, there really isn't a communication between me and Mother Nature. I was talking about this a little bit yesterday on my other live show, Chatters Live. If you ever want to come in on Sunday night, it was the first time I showed up since my trip. It was really wonderful to see and talk to everybody. But we were talking a little bit about how important it is to be connected with Mother Nature. We all spend so much time indoors, right? We're indoors at work. We get home from work, we're tired, we're indoors. This age of AI learning and the digital age in itself has offered up appliances, right? To make it so that we don't have to go out doors for anything, that we can be holed up in our box, which becomes our life, right? Our job, our house, our car, and we're just always inside. Like you can even order your dinner, right? Uber or oh sorry, not Uber, that's a taxi, right? Where DoorDash or I never use these services at all, and it's hard for me to skip the dishes. That was the other one, skip the dishes, right? Where even your meals can be delivered to you these days. Your groceries, like you can do it online and you can order your groceries, and your groceries would be, you don't even have to go outside for anything. You don't have to, but you should. We all should, because even though right? We don't speak Mother Nature. We feel it, don't we? We experience it, and we remember it. Like it's these trips that I take every year. Like I'm never going to forget any of the trips. I'm never going to forget the experiences that I had in nature, or had those experiences with myself, because I did a lot of reflection, a lot of contemplation in that, right? But I never felt disconnected to my environment. I never felt disconnected. I always felt like I was a part of the trees, and a part of the fall and the leaves falling to the ground, or the going down to the lake to get water so I can wash dishes, and connecting with the rocks and the waters and squirrels and the squirrels and the chipmunks and the pigeons and the right seagulls and the crows. Oh my goodness, the crows I saw this year were so massive. I swear they had a wingspan of at least 5 feet. I could hear the birds flying overhead, and I could hear the flap and the whip of the air in their wings. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, those must be eagles. But then one flew right over my head, and I could see it was actually just the most massive crow that I had ever seen. And I went, oh my goodness. And it wasn't the first one that I seen that was big. In the city, they don't they don't grow that big. But then again, right? That environment is supporting, right, the crows in what they can scavenge, what they can eat. And you know we grow differently in the environment, all of us, every single species in this world. We can we I wouldn't survive. You sent me to Africa, I wouldn't survive. It would just be too hot. It would be too suffocating. It would be the animals, the wild animals, right? And we think, I'm Canadian, so if I see a moose or a deer, or rabbits and coyotes, none of that stuff bothers me in any way, because I'm familiar with them, right? That's part of my environment. But if you sent me to Africa and I had to deal with lions and tigers and pythons and giraffes and right elephants, well, I'd probably be okay with the elephants. I probably would. I would just sing to them, right. But that connection that we have with Mother Nature, it is so important. And it's important for all of us, because even though Cindy doesn't speak trees, right? Trees are interconnected with each other. They are rooted, and they speak, and they're a species themselves. They are alive species. And, maybe it's something that we have forgotten, right? In that connection to Mother Nature, because again, through evolution and time and generations, and you know different resources that come into the picture, right, that make it so that life is indoors, right, that we've lost that ability to communicate with a different environment, because now the outdoors for lots of people have become a different environment, right? It has become, maybe like I said, if you stick me in Africa, I probably wouldn't survive, because it's not my environment. People who are blocked into the indoors, right, which is a big majority of the population, we are not looking at that environment. We might even be a little bit anxious about the outdoor environment. But that's only because we've forgotten it, because, right, we're all in our boxes now. And one thing that was so clear to me when I I recognized it as soon as I was there, and I found I couldn't get out of my camp chair, that I didn't want to be, um, uh, what is that, in the public spaces, that I wanted to be in the bush. I wanted to be at the beach. I wanted to be by myself. I really, this year was the first time that I didn't have interactions with other people. Like every year when I go on these trips, and I take this trip every year, every September, I take off for a week or two. I try to go for 10 days at the very least, right? But 2 weeks for sure if I can. This year, I didn't think I was going to be able to take the trip because, again, like lots of people, right? It's a little bit scary town in this world right now, and it just was not a good time, right? That there were family issues, and there were financial issues and employment issues and relationship issues. It was right. It was a different kind of year, but in the end, right? Those other parts of me that does know how to communicate with that environment said, Cindy, we're going on this trip. I am so grateful that, in that partnership with myself, that I recognize that we do have commonalities. There are, right? That love for nature, that love to be out on the road, that adventure in me is that adventure in those other parts of me too. That curiosity and that wonder, and it was it was amazing, and it just made me recognize that we are not spending enough time outside. Oh, video games. I forgot to mention the video games when I said TV. Yeah, but video games is a big one too, because we spend all that time that we could spend outside, we're spending indoors, right? With technology, with artificial lighting, with air filters and air conditioning, and just a lot of static and electric and just environmental stuff, right? That we are not really connecting with Mother Nature in any way. And, I was saying yesterday, like, you know, even if it's just sitting at your kitchen table, right, by the window, and you open up the window and just let the breeze, you know, come into your apartment. Yes, you might live on a busy street. There might be lots of exhaust, or right, but nature will find a way, even if we can't find a way to communicate or connect. If we can just get ourselves into that environment, and it's something that, I hope in the next lifetime that I'm not in that box, that I continuously understand how important it is to connect with nature. Oh my goodness, it was so amazing. It was so exhausting in the process. It was exhausting. I need vacations. Like, you hear that saying all the time. I need a vacation to recuperate from my vacation. But that's most definitely the truth. And when you hear that saying, I bet you it's because we are coming back from that connection with Mother Nature. But when I came home, oh my goodness, I felt rejuvenated. I felt re energized. I went 100 miles an hour, like I said, right up until today. And then today, other than, sending off a few messages and connecting with my sisters for a little bit, I really didn't do anything. Kept getting up once in a while and looking at my fridge, my cupboards for something to eat. And nothing seemed to draw me in. I just did not feel like doing anything. And it was that same feeling that I had when I was camping and I couldn't get out of my camp chair. I did, right? Only because, well, that's my makeup. I have that Energizer bunny kind of gene going on. And I feel bad if I'm not moving, if I'm not getting things done. And things always need to get done. Things always need to get done. But today I felt like everything's done, right? We got all the gear cleaned up, organized, put away. We got the house all cleaned up after we made that big mess doing that. I did 6 loads of laundry. I posted all my photos to Google Maps. I did some reviews. I started editing a video. I finished editing the video, but today I was going to polish it up a little bit, right? Eliminate a little bit of the scruffiness because it's not my forte. But I want to put out there the very best that I can, right? So I will be posting that video on Wednesday. I committed to Wednesday. So tomorrow I will have to do that little bit of polishing. And if I don't do that little bit of polishing, it doesn't matter because the video is edited and it just needs to be posted. It all, right? It would be okay. But in that pride and in that wanting to serve a little bit of my experience. And it is in the hopes that maybe somebody else out there will say, okay, well, I don't like camping, but I like to walk trails, right? I can go to the park and walk a trail. I don't like outdoors, but I do love golfing, right? I love to go to the beach and go for a swim, right? I love to get into the garden and play in the dirt and plant my vegetables. That is connection with Mother Nature. But we don't really have that in this day and age. Some of those, but a lot of those hobbies, a lot of those um, um, loves, because right, they're things that are imprinted on us that make us feel good and or did feel good, right, in past generations. And again, we might have lost that, right, because of this age of AI learning and just the advancement in our evolution, that we are losing our connection to Mother Nature. And you know it's just kind of a putting it out there for everybody that, is there something out there, you know even if it's, you know another good one I would say is, because I do this quite often, is I don't do the big grocery shops. I won't go off and spend $200 or $300 on groceries and fill up my cupboards for the month and stuff. I don't do that because I use that time to go for short jaunts to the grocery store, because that's connecting, right? Because I'll do my tree hugging and I'll connect with people, have my interactions, breathe in the fresh air, get a little bit of exercise. So I break that opportunity to do a big shop and I'll just do in small increments, purposely so that I can get outside. I think a lot of the well-being that I have, it is directly connected to that connection I have to the outdoors. It's something I've always had. It's something that my father had. My father a little bit differently because, like I said, right, it could be anything: golfing, swimming, beach, gardening. It could be anything. But for my dad, he was hunting, right? I couldn't do that, right? I couldn't. It's really, I don't even fish anymore. I used to fish and I heard a fish one time. I tore off its cheek trying to get its hook out of its mouth and it swam on its side. And I said, never again. I'm never going to fish again. But then I think, if my survival depended on it, right? If that was going to be my meal every day, then I would have to learn to fish. I have a survival bag that doesn't even have fishing line or hooks in it. What kind of sense does that make? I do have slingshots. I can peck off squirrels and chipmunks. But after my experience, right, with the chipmunks and the squirrels, they were absolutely adorable on my trip, and frustrating and little pesties they were. You'll see them in the videos if you watch um, uh, my Ontario provincial park tour this year. I did 4 different provincial parks, and I am editing each one of those days as a video. Um, my first video was an hour long. I probably had 6 or 7 hours worth of footage, so it was really hard for me to cut it down. I wanted to leave it all in there, but I didn't want to bore people because, again, what I love is different than what other people love. I just appreciate that connection to the outdoors. And my dad, like I said, he was a hunter. He was a commercial fisherman. He even, like, on his days off or when he was home, because he'd go away for months at a time, right? And he'd come home, and the first thing he wanted to do was get a boat and go out to the bay and just go fishing and spend time with his kids and stuff, right? And yeah, it's something that he instilled in me, but he instilled it differently. We did some camping as a family, as kids. I enjoyed it lots. Uh, but my love for camping came to me as a young adult, right? I was in my early 20s, and right, I always wanted to go camping. It was right, but at that time, being the empath that I was, right, and being that codependent that I was, I didn't want to go off by myself, right? Camping. I was always putting these big groups together, all my buddies, everybody I know, we're going camping. And then when we went camping, there was always like 20 or 30 of us going. And it was lots of fun. But that connection to Mother Nature wouldn't have gotten through to me the way it gets to me now, because that time is with myself now. It's not with a whole bunch of people. And like I said, I usually have connections and interactions with people when I go on these trips every year. Something fabulous happens, and I have an experience with somebody that, you know, stays with me, that I always remember, right? That I can tell that story. And this year, nothing. There were no interactions besides maybe saying hello to people while I'm walking the trails. Other than that, I spent the whole 8 days by myself. And then the past few days, of course, I spent by myself because I had to get my life back together, right? Because I was gone, and I I had a lot of cleanup to do. So in a way, it kind of makes sense to me that today I shut her down, right? I says, okay, that's it, Cindy, right? You got your video edited, you got your gear put away, you've got the house cleaned, you got the house cleaned up, you got all the laundry done, you got your cat back, she's happy, getting lots of attention and stuff, that it's time for you to crash. That's what it felt like for me today. Like a total crash. I think it was like 3 o'clock before I even got out of my pajamas today. And that's the truth. And like I said, I was just kind of felt a little bit lost. I felt like I was looking for something to do, but not very hard, because I didn't want to do anything. That's the guilt and shame. That's only this to say mush. right? Get to it, Cindy. You're falling behind. You haven't gotten this done. You've got some time here. What are you sitting down for? But that's the self-talk, right? That's just stuff that just comes from the past. And I am a mover, right? And again, I'm that little energizer bunny. I like to stay moving. I like that sense of action and that sense of accomplishment I get when I get things done. It's part of my makeup. It's part of something that makes me feel good. I don't do it because I have to. Sometimes we have to, right? Otherwise, we're going to starve or we're going to um, well, I could have stayed. I could have stayed in those provincial parks for, oh my goodness, ever. My whole brain was going, how do I get an RV? Right? I want to retire and I just want to do provincial and state parks. I want to travel all over North America, right? And I just don't want to be in an apartment anymore. Just let's do this. How do we do it? And today I just said, get it, Cindy. Just let everything go. Just like you were called to sit in that camping chair, uh, and I just it was just beautiful. It was so relaxing. It was so deflating. It was like that, this year. And I do this trip every September, but this year it just felt like I was just like a balloon. I was just taking everything in. And then if I didn't take off and just slowly just go and let it deplete out of me, right? There would have been something that would have went pop and I would have just like been like a balloon and I just would have, right, just popped and aired out. And I'm so grateful for my connection. But I just want to kind of say that, mention it to people, but not so necessarily that I expect that anybody's going to go out there and go, okay, I'm going to tree hug today, or I'm going to go sit in a bench in a park, right? You may, more than likely, you're just sitting here listening to Cindy jibber jabber, right? But if you happen to, right, take note, like pay attention to how you feel when you get home. Feel that zapping of energy. You know how it feels when you go to the beach and you spend all day at the beach and the kids are screaming and everybody's fighting and there's, right, you just got too much sun, and you know that feeling when you get home. That feeling is the take, I believe, that Mother Nature, like there's a price for everything, right? And I'm not saying that a price, that's probably a wrong way to say it, but an offering, a gift, right? That I didn't know I was giving because I don't communicate that way. But I suspect that those other parts of me communicate that way, right? And that's the idea that Cindy doesn't have to know how it's done or why it's done, but I have to pay attention and recognize the benefits of that. Like I said, I came home from my trip and I don't know where that energy came. I did not stop until I went to bed last night, right? And today was a little bit different story. I gave that to myself. But I gave it to myself at the same time as I was going to say, you know, like I'm a bouquet of helium balloons and I just like gonna float away, right? That that was the feeling that I was called to today. It wasn't to be taking in lessons, right? Here's a good one. I panicked last night when I went to bed because usually I grab my phone and I did walk to the store yesterday, right? And and so when I go to bed, I usually grab my phone and I take it to my end table beside my bed and I plug it in. So I got a full charge phone. Otherwise, lots of times I forget to charge my phone. It's just part of my evening routine. Plug in my phone before I go to bed. And I'm looking around. Where's my phone? And I thought, oh my goodness, I took it to the grocery store and I left it on the counter. Oh my goodness, another expense after destroying my glasses. It's like looking through wax paper. I am switching between this pair, which are not the film. I ruined the film somehow on the glasses, right? So I'm gonna have to dish out the money. I'm gonna have to find a way to come up with some money so I can get a new pair of glasses because I can't go back to work, right? I couldn't be able to function a cash register or read anything or even work on the computer. Even these glasses, because I'm switching between, this isn't even my last prescription. This is the prescription before my last prescription, and the nose guards are off and they're cutting into my super uncomfortable, but I managed to edit one of my days on my trip, well, two of my days on my trip. My first park, which was Blue Lake Provincial Park in Ontario. It was absolutely amazing, you guys. Absolutely amazing. And I took you guys along with me, right? I had my camera on my monopod, and right, I took it with me everywhere. As I killed power packs and batteries, and right, and I managed to put a 1 hour video together, and I'll be putting that up on Wednesday. Like I said, if you want to come in Wednesday and check that out, I would appreciate that, and your feedback, more importantly, because this is something that I've been doing for many, many years now. And it is in my hopes that possibly, when I am done in the workforce, that I can somehow, right, make that a part of my life, my day to day, everyday life. That would be so amazing. I saw so many opportunities for me to well, set some goals and move towards them in a way that will keep me in line in building my brand, because I love posting my adventures, especially the September trips. I just love sharing my experiences on the trails and in the provincial parks and at the lakesides and the sunsets and the sun, all of it, right? I do love that. But in order to do that full time, right, we're going to have better accommodations than what I had. We'll leave it at that. Better accommodations than what I had this year. It's only because I haven't posted those videos yet, but you'll see them if you come in and watch them. You'll see it was challenging, it was frustrating, it was beautiful, it was relaxing, it was abundantly connected to my environment. I was in it 100%. And if you could have just left me there, if I didn't have to come back, if I didn't have my sister's car, I would, right? I just love being on the road. I just love being in the provincial parks, and I see opportunities, right? When it comes to my brands, when we have these meetups and stuff, if I wanted to do a workshop, or if I wanted to do a retreat, would be absolutely amazing. These provincial parks are the perfect place for me, perfect environment for the 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 connection that I want to make with other people, right? And other souls, and other species, Mother Nature, right? And I see the potential. I see the possibility to be able to have a relatable picture to what my goals and dreams are, right? What I would like to see myself doing in another 5 years, maybe at the very most. I want, right? If this is going to happen, it's going to be within the 5 years. So I'm working on that, right? But at the same time, I'm waiting for opportunities to come across my path, conversations and experiences that will lead me into that, because I understand that I work my best when I'm on the fly, when I'm in that hairy, scary, when something is pushing at me and I've got to push back, when I've got to adapt and conquer and achieve and overcome. That's my very best, right? It's only because, right, that in the end, I always achieve what I set out to achieve. And that is something that I'm very grateful to recognize. And it's pretty recent for me, half a dozen years or so, that I've been able to create for myself instead of creating for other people, right? For being around other people and problem solving, and for other people, and being creative in how to make money and save money for other people, right? And not give myself that same consideration. That's kind of sad, and that's kind of the end of doing that, right? And it's not a matter of being selfish, because that's not the person that I am, but I'm not serving anybody, right? Unless I can serve myself a little bit, right? I'm not asking for the world. I'm asking for a piece, and I'm going to take my piece of that pie. I will, right? And be grateful for that. And if other people, right, seem to like hanging out with me and having a piece of that pie too, even better. And if not even hanging out with me, if you wanted that piece of pie and go off by yourself and enjoy that, that's perfectly good too, right? It's just a matter of finding that right environment for ourselves. There's got to be something for everybody outdoors, right? Kind of reminds me of that joke I heard. It was when I first woke up to some of these ideas. I had a good belly laugh over that. It was like, when I was a kid, um, my mother would scream at us when she was cleaning the house or whatever. She goes, "Go play outside," right? And we would just take off on our neighborhood adventures, whatever we were up to. We were feral kids, whatever we were up to, and we would take off. But you say that to the kids in this day and age, and what are they going to do? They're going to grab their phones and they're going to go out maybe into the backyard and lay in a lawn chair and carry on with what they were doing inside. If that's what can be managed, that's going to have to be good enough, because from my understanding, right, I didn't have to understand, right? Cindy had no clue in that communication. I love being in nature. I appreciate Mother Nature. I love the landscapes. I'm a bit of a tree hugger and stuff. And I do speak to them, but I'm not hearing that conversation back to me. But I bet you those other parts of me are. And nature has been here since the very beginning, you guys, since the very beginning, if there was any species in this world that you need the scoop, you need to understand, because every tree, every bush, they're all interconnected in the roots. They're all communicating, right, with each other in the roots. That there's help there. There's information there. And even though I don't speak tree, I'm starting to better understand me. And if the trees can talk to those other parts of me, maybe those other parts of me be able to get it through to me. And that's why I'm having this little conversation right now about nature. Everybody, right? It's not something you have to do, but it's something that would be extremely helpful, right? It would be extremely helpful. I don't think when I came home I would have had the energy to do absolutely anything if it hadn't been for that little bit of appreciation for the environment that I was in last week. Okay, you guys, 54 powerful words. They're just powerful words, you guys. I'm going to pick a card. I'm going to pick a word. We're going to go into it for a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to call it a night. I am really happy because I'm staying up a little bit later, and I'm going to try and get my sleeping habits back in respect to the way they've been for the past, I don't know, decade, 6 years at the very least, right? I used to be nocturnal. I'd stay up till like daylight and then sleep till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I did that right up until my late 50s, right? And that is not healthy to be doing that. And anybody who works the night shift, right, knows what I'm talking about. It's really, really hard on the system. But because of my love for having that piece of the world when everybody was asleep, to feel like the world was mine at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning. I love that. And I probably, right, did not do myself too much of a service by doing that. But I needed that peace because I was in that hairy, scary, I was in that crazy town of other people's lives, right? And not paying attention to my own. And because, that was a time when I could truly just be alone and be awake for that, right? I could be alone and sleeping, but that's different. Be alone and go, oh my goodness, the whole world's asleep. The whole world is mine right now. It just feels, it's so peaceful, right? And my sister's the exact same way. She doesn't understand why she has that little bit of insomnia, right? But she loves the world to be hers early in the morning. And, my sister has lived on 3 or 4 hours sleep her entire life. She's been that way. And it has caused quite a bit of havoc in her physical well-being and her mental well-being, because that's a lot of stress. Can you imagine going, she was a high executive, like to go into meetings and stuff and you haven't had any sleep, right? And she did that for decades and decades, and it was only because she wanted that little bit of peace, that little bit of getting away from crazy town and other people's issues, and right. Okay, you guys, that's enough of that. Connect with Mother Nature if you can, or just feel it out, try it, right? Maybe walk home instead of taking a bus or driving your car home. Maybe you can walk home, or right, go to Walmart and buy yourself a cheap mountain bike. Like, bike riding is so easy and it's so fun, right? Yeah, I need a new bike. I need lots of things. Glasses, glasses just went on the priority list along with the desktop. I don't know how I'm going to manage it, but it's going to get done, right? Because these are things that we can't go without. And I have no idea what happened, right? There is no clue, no moment in time on my trip when I put myself in a, it has to be some kind of chemical reaction or something, right? But there was something else that I did that week that I think might be a possibility. And what I did is I put some wipes on my sister's window. It's to make it so that when it rains, it just spills off her windows. And I'm thinking, because I was working so hard and getting the car ready for my trip, that maybe when I was doing that, I had wiped my glasses, my hands on my lenses and stuff. And if that's the case, then that will wash off over time. So I'm consistently, a few times a day, I'm just going to keep giving these glasses a wash, because that's a good possibility, because I can't think of anything that I did that would make it so the film on my glasses would come off. But there was a reason for that happening, right? And, maybe it was to put the fire under my butt, right? To get me back into the workforce, maybe, right? But whatever the reason is, it still made it to the priority list. So I've got a desktop that I have to get, and I have my glasses that I'm probably going to have to replace, because I don't know how long those wipes last. There's some kind of, when you wash your car, right? When you take it to the gas station, they put something over the window so that when it does rain, it just kind of spills off and you don't have to use the wipers. I think that's what I did. I think I touched my lenses while I was doing those windows, and I think I got that chemical on my lenses. But if that's the case, because I know it said that it lasts for up to 2 months, that if I continue to wash my glasses, maybe I'll be able to wash that film off. And that would be absolutely amazing if I could do that, because I just bought these glasses and they were very expensive. Okay, you guys, let's just pick a card. I picked a card each day on my trip. So if you come in and watch my provincial park tour videos, there'll be 4 or 5 of them that I'm going to be putting up, and I'll do one a week. I'm going to put one up this Wednesday. I'll post one, but my first day out on my trip. Maybe you'll find it amusing. Maybe you'll find me amusing, but maybe you'll feel that draw, that maybe, you'll, after watching my video, that you'll just grab your camping chair and just go sit out in your backyard. That would make me so happy. And if you do that, put it down in the messages that you did that for me, because that's what you'd be doing. That you would be doing that you're doing that for yourself, but you would be doing something for me too, because I felt really compelled to really press on that connection to Mother Nature. And if I hit one person, if I connected that with one person, that would make me so happy. It really would, right? Okay, you guys. One card, one powerful word tonight. Let's hope it serves. And if it serves, again, leave that impression in the comments. Let me know how it impacted. And if it doesn't, it's all good. Just say hi in the comments too, right? Either way. Oh, how about if we take that card, whatever it is that I dropped on the ground? Oh my goodness. This is a good one. When I first woke up to some of these ideas, I was looking for thought leadership. I really felt and was compelled to learn more of what I was delving into, what was coming into my life and what was leaving my life. And I needed a little bit of direction in that. And I happened on to one gentleman that I connected with, Evan Carmichael, and he serves up all kinds of thought leadership, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different thought leaders. And when I say thought leaders, like it's anybody with a thought who's an expert in their field. So whether it was Donald Trump or whether it was um, uh, Seth Godin. He was one of the very first ones that I happened on to, right? Lewis Howes. There's so many great people out there, but just not in thought leadership, in expert in their field. So it could be somebody in sports, it could be somebody in politics, it could be somebody in acting, it could be somebody in any field, right? But who's an expert in what they do, right? And I felt I needed that little bit of direction. We haven't got to the word yet. I needed that little bit of direction, but one of the first lessons was to figure out, right, what our one word was, what represents us. And usually it's a word that we personally need in our lives, right? Something that helps to motivate us, something that inspires us, right? It's very important to have these words. This is a word I've had since I was a little kid. And that word is despite. That was my one word until I woke up to some of these ideas. And then I've gone through a few words since then, right? Pivots, right? I've gone through quite a few words since, but this word served me for decades. I come from a very dynamic family, right? And again, remember what I said, we were feral kids growing up. Right? Television had just been invented. Well, shortly before I was old enough to watch TV. It was like this late 60s, 70s, right? That I started watching television, and television became my babysitter, right? But I was feral and I was connected. My mom says, right, go outside and play. And I would take off, but I would have to explore. I would have to um, create things in my life so that I could have a life. Because despite, right, what anybody thought, I thought I deserved to be able to make the best life for myself as I possibly could. Despite what somebody said, despite that somebody said, no, I can't do that, or no, it's not possible, or no, you can't have that second helping. I was an obese kid. No, you can't have that second helping, or no, you can't have that new pair of jeans, or right. It right, you can't have that new dress. You can go to the secondhand store and you can get a dress at the secondhand store. You can have, I was the oldest, so there were no hand-me-downs for me, thank goodness, right? Because my sisters all wore my hand-me-downs and I was a big kid to start with. But I use this word despite a lot. Despite is the courage to go against what was expected, right? And a lot of people think that's butting heads, or being difficult, and that's not the way it is anyway. It's like what I said earlier, when I first came live tonight. I just wanted to take my piece of the pie, right? Right, I'm happy to earn, right, what I get in life. But despite somebody saying that, no, you don't have the right to do that, or I don't give you permission to do that, or it's not possible that you even know how to do that, despite all of that, I'm going to give it my best shot, right? Because I have just as much right to create the best life for myself as anybody else does. I'm not the bottom of what's on somebody's bottom of their shoes, right? That that you know somebody who is well more financially secure, less dynamics in their family, didn't have to have hand me downs, right? Wasn't always expected to babysit themselves and entertain themselves, which I was happy to do because if I was at home, it would be a lot difficult, right? It was much easier if I was off exploring and doing my own thing, right? But I mattered, right? I mattered, and there was so much in that pushback that was saying that I didn't matter, that I had to stick up for myself, right? Despite is the courage, right? Courage, because it does take courage when somebody says no, you can't, right? No, it's not possible, right? It takes courage just to do it anyway, right? Despite is the courage to go against what is expected, despite what you say, right? Despite what you think, despite if you think I can or I can't, I'm going to give it my best shot. Why? Well, you get that shot. If you get that shot, I'm taking that shot too. I have every right. I am a human being. I'm a part of this environment, and I have every right to make the best life for myself as I possibly can. I love that word, despite, but I had to change it because he said that he had never come across um, a negative word, and despite does sound a little bit negative, does it? But in a way, it's not. It's a very positive word. It's a very self encouraging word. It is a word that shows the partnership with myself because I was able to stick up for myself, to go against the grain, right? To bring up the courage and say, I'm going to do it anyway, despite. Despite is the courage to go against what is expected. Everybody, have a great night. I'm happy to be home. I will be back tomorrow. I'm going to try and come in a little bit earlier tomorrow. And as the videos go out, because I won't want to talk too much about my trip until that video has been posted, and then I'll talk about my experiences and stuff because you know what it's like when you're sitting there watching a movie and your wife is telling you all the good parts because she's seen it already, right? I know we were always in trouble for doing that. Okay, you guys, have a great night. We'll see you.